Hi, I'm Professor Keeley, and welcome to Advertising. There is a couple things I want you to know before we get started. Please, please, please make sure that you read the syllabus. I have very strict rules for my classroom. There's a reason why. I don't like just being very strict. But I can look back in my life, whether it's my mother, my bosses, that were extremely strict with me. And it's one of the things that has led to my career being very successful. One of the things that I would want to remind you is I'm not a professor who spent my life in academia. I was making six figures in the business world before I decided that I just needed to teach because I'd been teaching as an adjunct and it just really had the calling to try to share my knowledge with other people. Plus, I got tired of the politics. I'm not somebody who likes to play politics. There's people in the business world who I don't respect and how they operate, but I will respect the position that they're in. And you're going to have that as well. And so I just realized that I was never going to get past the director role, even though I was doing the role of vice presidents for a lot of companies, and made that decision that I really belong in the world of academia, teaching the 30 years that I know that are out there. So the information that you'll get from me in these little like weekly podcasts are based on my own experiences because I struggle with some of these textbooks, and I'm currently in the process of writing some textbooks with McGraw-Hill because the way that these textbooks are written either are redundant or confusing, and they don't describe things the way they're supposed to operate. So the textbook that you have right now is good, but I would say that there are things that I would do differently, and I'll explain those as I go. But one thing I want you to notice is that I tab out my textbooks, all my books really. I'm in a PhD program. If you want to look at my art and theory book, it's all tabbed out. So as you go through these, because again, advertising isn't just about, you and a business. So if you're going to open your own business, you're going to use advertising. If you're working for a company and you're in the marketing department, you're going to want to understand advertising, right? Because especially if you're working for a small business, your job depends on that company being successful. So you need to bring to that company everything that you can to help them be successful. So you are also somebody who's a consumer. And so you see advertising all the time, and you just have to become more aware when you're watching advertising because most people just watch it and don't think about it. And that's what advertisers want you to do. So, as we go through this course, whether it's you're watching things streaming on YouTube or you're on Amazon Prime and you're watching free Amazon Prime and the commercials pop up, I want you to start thinking about how you respond to those commercials. Because one of the things that I do on my social media are debriefs of things that happen. Like I did a debrief of the American Eagle and Sydney Sweeney ad, right? The people that were outraged weren't the people that were in their target market. So while you hear about all this outrage going on about that campaign, American Eagle's stock went up, I believe it was in the 20s, and the jeans were flying off the shelf because it was never an outrage campaign, as I've seen some people online who fashion themselves as marketers and experts who are not. It was a back to school campaign. Back to school. College students and high school students are always buying jeans for school. That's all it was. And it was a play on the word jeans, Jeans, versus the jeans that are, that really beautiful people inherit. And so, what you'll find with me, if you look at my resume, I'm in a PhD program for aesthetics and art theory. Aesthetics is the study of beauty. So, and beauty and art and, and beauty in nature. So, that's the play. But they have a whole social outrage that American Eagle probably didn't plan for, but was riding the wave of sales because, people had probably forgotten about American Eagle. And that advertising campaign worked. So you're going to want to really understand advertising. Now, the one thing I would tell you, and even in this book, like for example, if you were to look on, let's see, I tabbed it out on page, you have the what is advertising and the role of advertising in business. That's great. But you get to page 6 and it says, what is marketing? Right? So that's the kind of thing that I struggle with because marketing is the umbrella for which the promotions tab is, right? So under promotions, there is advertising, sales, and public relations. And one of the things that I get very upset with is when the textbooks confuse or instructors confuse advertising and public relations. So I want to be really clear. We have a public relations course that you can take, but the answer simply put is advertising is paid. That you as a company are paying a media source to run your commercials. Public relations, on the other hand, is where you go out to the media source, get them to either write an article or to interview you, and then they publish it. And you don't pay a dime. So that's why there's all this pressure on public relations because they get hit, the media gets hit constantly to have an article written about them. Why? That does two things, and that's what's covered under public relations in that book. But advertising and this course is all about how do you figure out who and you're going to figure out who your target audience is. That's part of marketing, right? You have to figure out who your target audience is. As an advertising agency, and that's what the assignment is in this class, I want you to start to think about yourself as working for an advertising agency. Your job is to talk to your client, understand their target market from them, right? Go out and do your own little research to make sure that the actual is the target market. Because you as an advertising agency can go back to your client and say, well, I know that this is your target audience, and maybe that was a couple years ago, but now your target audience has changed based on these, surveys and polls that we've done. So, and we would recommend that you change demographics, or we would recommend that you continue to market to this demographic, but then we figure out a campaign that you can target a different demographic. So that's the role of advertising, is to understand the different target audiences and then create commercials or print ads that you place strategically. So for example, if my demographic is 18 to 24-year-old girls, I'm going to go to Teen Vogue. I'm going to go to all the magazines. If this is a fashion product, I'm going to go to all those magazines and place advertising in those magazines where my demographic is looking and where they're watching. They may watch certain TV shows from this time slot to this time slot. So I'm going to buy advertising from that time slot to that time slot. So there's this whole looking at that where that target audience is, and then figuring out where in the media that they're watching and placing your ad right there so that you have a higher percentage of people buying your product because you're targeting them and basically reminding them or encouraging them to contact you or to go online and purchase. Now, there's traditional media. That is like your print, newspaper, billboards, magazines would be traditional media. And then there's non-traditional media, and I'm talking about your history. So this chapter also covers the history, and I would tell you, I love history. I love history. Why? Because number one, you're doomed to repeat it if you don't know it. But number two, there was some really interesting things. So advertising's been around since least the 1850s, but it became a master course in how the 1950s they sped up and really turned advertising into a science. There are things that were done in the 1950s that we have forgotten today. And I'll tell you about it later on in the course, what it is. But it's psychological. But it was worth noting and going back and looking at advertising campaigns, from the past. So for example, when I was an instructor at the Art Institute, I had access to all the Vogue magazines going back to the 1850s. So guess what I did? I went back to the first issue and started looking at the fashion because I have a fashion background. I taught in the fashion merchandising program, but I was looking at the ads, right? Some of those ads are fascinating. And how they promoted things, what they could say back then that we can't say now, offers that they were making, taglines, all these different things were very interesting. So you're going to definitely want to go back and look at your history. Why? Because right now, there's a certain model for how commercials happen. but sometimes revisiting the past and using techniques from the past. And there's one that I'm starting to see come back, and I don't mind sharing it with you, but it's jingles, repeating things. Three is a sacred number, and I won't go into that, but three is a sacred number, and especially in psychology. So repeating the same thing three times, especially in a song, and that's the jingle. That's why you remember all these different songs and commercials, is because there's a psychological network behind it. And then we also, in this chapter, talk about the ethics of it. Advertising has some really good things and they have some really bad things. One of them is called subliminal advertising, where um, agencies or companies placed subliminal advertising, things that you can't necessarily see, but your brain sees, because that's how sophisticated the brain is. So, advertising is about understanding human psychology. And I can be honest and say that a consumer behavior class is not going to be enough to take and understand psychology. I am, I have a psychology emphasis in my background, and it has served me well throughout all of my marketing efforts, including and especially in advertising, because I have to get into your head as a consumer to figure out how you feel and what kind of emotion I can use in my advertising to compel you to buy. So, one example that's not in your textbook would be Nike. I mean, in this chapter, would be Nike. Nike has created an emotional glow around their brand with the tagline, "Just do it." It's empowerment. That's the emotion that they have built into their campaigns, which is just do it. Anybody can just do it, just do it. But the reality is, people can't just do it. For example, using myself as a case study, I can't run. I am not athletic. I can get there with practice, but I will never be as good as some of the athletes who have natural ability. So I can't just do it. I can try, and that's the empowerment. I can get as far as my body will allow me to go. So, but Nike gives me the impression that all I have to do is wear their shoes and I can just do it, but I can't. Now, I can just do it intellectually, anything, because I'm built for that, but I'm not built for athletics. So the emotion is people who want to be athletic and think that these shoes can help. And Nike is one of the master classes on marketing. So make sure that you're reading about the effects on consumer, dig a little bit deeper outside this textbook if you can. I will try to provide you with videos that I think are helpful along the way. But I wanted to just give you this quick video to make the class more personal so that you're getting a lecture from me and not just looking at the books. But I am also available to you at any time. If you want to meet with me either in person on campus, please look at my office hours, which are typically Monday. I can be available on some Wednesdays, definitely available on Friday for WebEx calls. But I'm happy to help you as you go through this because, again, not only are you going to use advertising for your small business, if that's what you want to do, or working for a company, but when you are looking for a job, you will use advertising to advertise yourself. If you don't have a LinkedIn account already, that is the Facebook for business people. And that's where you start to advertise yourself on your own posting. Like, what are you posting that's advertising that you're really good at your job? If you're connected to the right people, that advertisement post that you do on yourself is something that might intrigue somebody and say, hey, we have an open position. Would you come in and interview for it? There's also non-traditional ads that you can place on Facebook and Instagram and all these different social media sites now, where you can, as a business, place small little ads that get right in front of a target audience, and they're super easy to do, and I've done them in the past. So as you read through this, I want you to really understand what advertising is, but also if you have any questions about it, I'm here to help and share my personal stories of advertising campaigns and agencies that I've hired when I've worked for the Fortune 500 companies, or what my Fortune 500 companies have done or small businesses have done. Even in my little small store, I did a poster with a dog on it, right? An up close picture of a dog. And I ran a resale shop. And I wanted to say, hey, I'm not your normal resale shop because I actually wash all of my clothing and I spritz my store with sandalwood and lavender so it doesn't smell and stink. So I did a campaign on a poster really inexpensively, because that's the other thing too, is learning how to control your budget when you're actually making the campaign. But it was called, I put come inside um, smell us, we're a different kind of resale. And I had more people ask me if they could buy that poster. So obviously, even in my own small business, I took everything that I've learned from from my Fortune 500 companies and applied it to my small business, that I was able to sell posters of my advertising campaign because people liked it. So that's what I'm going to encourage you to do in this class, is really look at your outside experiences. And there's a reflection little paper that's along with the papers that you're going to be doing. There's a little reflection area. And I will be honest and say that I may be adjusting some of the assignments in the class, but I will make sure to let you know. There are a lot of little mini projects from the previous instructor who taught this, and I'm still kind of going through what I'm going to ask you guys to do. So I'm redesigning the class. So there may be some adjustments. So just I will put those in the announcement section. So please make sure that you're looking at the announcement sections. And if you have any questions about D2L, that you're going out to the syllabus or contacting, because I put in the syllabus the LCC help desk, and you're going to want to make sure that you look to that to get your information. So that's it for me for now, and enjoy the class. Hopefully you learn a lot, and ask me any questions that you need. Thanks and have a great day.